Cheers, Mama. You have wine, I have water. Jesus would be so proud.
And of me.
He'd just take mine and
be
make
like,
it
let me
wine.
fix that water for you.
So I want to welcome everybody back here. It is episode 2 of GSL Uncut, our new video podcast channel. I want to thank you for being here once again. I will say that as we are recording this, this is the day that we actually released episode 1 of the podcast, and we have been getting so much positive feedback from those of you who made your way over to see what it is that we have to offer over here. And I want to thank you so much for Melissa and I. Again, everything has been so positive. We really appreciate the time and consideration that you gave us, and just again, seeing what it is we're doing over here.
Yeah. It's been extremely humbling and energizing. So we appreciate that.
Also, I have this towel with me because we're in a tiny home. We do not have AC in here, and it is blazing hot.
I told you not to show the towel.
So if I start to sweat profusely, we all know why. I'm just going to keep this out of sight in my lap, though.
Literally right before we started recording, I'm like, don't show him the towel. And then like first minute, you're like, this is my sweat towel.
I can't help it. It's what I do with insecurity. It just bubbles out of me all of a sudden.
Sweat towel.
Whew. Anyway, so how are we doing, Mama?
We're doing well.
Good week?
Good week.
Good busy week?
Yeah. Productive.
Very productive. Absolutely. So what is it that we are discussing here today?
Well, so earlier we were discussing, because we were looking at our teenager trying to arrange plans to go actually have some human interaction. But we were just discussing how different things are with the new generations, the new models versus us, versus our parents and their parents, and how they interacted, how humans have interacted from the beginning of time versus now.
So the generational differences?
Just how everything's different now. Like, we are the last of our kind.
The Mohicans. Oh, sorry, that's not. I thought you were going somewhere else with
nope,
that.
I wasn't. We actually have nothing to do with that. But we are the last of our kind. The last of our kind.
What do you mean by that? What are you?
We are the last generation. We are actually like a weird morphed generation. I think our parents were the last generation that didn't really experience growing up with the internet. We were introduced to the internet really in college. It started to trickle out in high school. I mean, we had our Hotmail accounts.
Ooh. Yeah. In our case, we still do.
It's vintage and I like it. Leave it alone.
No, but we were talking about the internet specifically and how that has definitely changed things in the way that people interact, people that are more so our age. I guess we are technically millennials, which I hate because I feel like we do not fall in that category, but we were both born in 83. So technically speaking, both millennials.
I like it. It sounds young. We'll go with it.
Embrace it while you can.
Yes.
No, but I think even in having discussions with Nevaeh, and so my last assignment in the police department, I was actually a school resource officer for a couple of years there. And I noticed in the time that I spent within the school that kids interact with each other much differently today than they did when we were back in high school.
Yeah.
There were kids that were dating virtually. They were virtually dating. So they were having all of this interaction through screens, through phones, tablets, whatever they were doing.
You're like, all of this interaction.
It required a dance. No, it's so different. You know, it's these kids live a portrayal, a version of themselves online, and that's their preferred method of interacting with their peers. And it's just so bizarre to see.
Well, Nevaeh, now that she's getting older, is starting to get to know the opposite gender online.
Right.
And we're like, you don't know these people. And she's like, no. People are way more themselves online because they feel unfiltered.
First
they
of all,
feel protected.
That's a horrible impression. Number one.
More attitude?
No, but it's true. And we try pointing out to her all the time. It's like, hey, you can't consider, I don't know. And maybe this is just me becoming older and more curmudgeoned the older I get. But
curmudgeon?
I'm not even sure that I know what that term
couldn't
means.
Sound any older. You called yourself curmudgeon.
Yeah, I regret that already. What I mean is you can't refer to somebody as a friend when you've never physically met them in real life.
We have this conversation with her frequently.
Yeah, and it's terribly frustrating that this has just become the norm. I guess I just don't understand it, and because of that, I become frustrated by it for whatever reason.
Yeah, well, I think there's been a huge disconnect. So when we were in school, when we were kids, if you wanted to find your friend, you went and you found your friend.
Absolutely.
You got on your bicycle without a helmet and you rode around the neighborhood.
You're making fun of me with the
This is my
gestures?
bike. You rode around the neighborhood until you found your friend, or you went to their home and you physically knocked on the door. You had the awkward interaction with their parents of, can Jimmy come
so-and-so
out and
home?
play? No, they can't play. Then you felt stupid and you had to turn around and leave their home.
No, I vividly remember. How about making arrangements? Remember that? You remember standing by payphones waiting for somebody to call?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I remember going to Kahala Mall, Pro Ridge when I was a kid and like, hey, I'm calling you from this number. Call me right before you leave and I'll stand here and wait for you.
Yeah.
And I'll twiddle my thumbs because there's nothing to tinker on. There's
Yeah.
no phone, no smartphones, nothing like that. So
And then we got pagers or beepers or whatever you wanted to call them. And
did you have one?
Yeah, I had one.
didn't. I never got myself a beeper.
Oh man, I had one and it was clear and you could see the wires. And I wore it on the outside
It's good times.
of my Jinko jeans
It's good times.
so that everyone knew that I had a beeper.
Of course.
For the first year, it did not work.
Isn't it funny that that was a status symbol back in the day?
Mine didn't work.
What do you mean it didn't work? So you just wore it for cool points?
Yes, I did.
Melissa.
I know.
I
know.
That's a no-no.
It was cool though. No one else had a beeper that didn't work.
Yeah, things are so different. You know what else I remember being able to, like if you wrote like 80085,
It said boobs.
said boobs.
You could do it on your calculator too.
That was the infancy of text messaging.
So you flirted with someone. Boobs.
So where do you think things go from here? Being that again, we're pretty much out of touch at this point, despite the fact that we actually live our lives out online.
Right. I know it's funny because as people that kind of exist online, when people see us, they are kind of like, oh,
You're regular, normal people. Shh.
but you know, they're kind of like, oh, I'm so used to seeing you on the screen. This is so weird. Like, even though they watch hours and hours of us living life, they don't actually realize that we're just real people. So when we stand there at 5 feet tall, 5'7", and they already know, Jeremy, that act is up. When they look down upon the tops of our heads, they're like, it's so weird seeing you out of the screen and seeing us in the wild. That's what I always say when I see someone in the store, that I've seen them in the wild, because we're so used to seeing people online.
Yeah, and it's so bizarre. It plays like a weird psychological trick on you, and I know that that's the case because I've been guilty of it myself.
Right.
We've run into other people that we know from the intranet.
I get excited.
And it just makes for such a surreal experience. But then I'm always thinking to myself, like, it's not that big a deal. Anybody with a phone can put themselves online. There's absolutely nothing special about what we do, but it makes for a very bizarre real life interaction when you run into that person face to face.
Well, I think we have so many interactions, and we have so many deep interactions and emotional interactions. I mean, people have, let's say you watch Good Simple Living, you've ridden a roller coaster of emotions through our own adventures and journeys. And then maybe you see us in real life and it's not
It's a
magical.
total letdown. It's just an absolute letdown.
You're like, dance for us.
Where's the music? Why is there no music playing?
Right. This is
As
usually
you're doing things, shopping for carrots.
so much more romantic online.
Yeah, it's really, really interesting. Do you think that there are any drawbacks that come along with that? Just the internet as a whole. I know for us, the internet has been a total godsend, honestly. There's really, I mean, we couldn't have built the room that we are sitting in had it not been for do-it-yourself videos online that are readily available, that are made available for free. I mean, it's such an incredible resource, but at the same time, I do feel like there are drawbacks to it.
Yeah, there's absolutely drawbacks. I think the biggest drawback with spending any time online, whether it's the way that you make a living, whether you're an influencer, video creator, YouTuber, whatever you want to call yourself, whether you were that, or you were an Instagram influencer, or you were just a mom on Facebook posting that sourdough bread loaf you finally got to rise, and you're like, I'm the queen of sourdough. There is a level of comparison there. And if you live online, you're looking at all these other moms with their perfect clean kids and their matching polo shirts, and their kids aren't fighting, and your kids are fighting right now, and theirs are like, but it's not real. It's a snapshot.
It's a snippet.
It's probably edited
Heavily.
and it's probably set up.
Absolutely.
Like, stop pulling her hair now. Smile nice. Nice smile, not that stupid smile. And then they, okay, perfect. And then they're like, look at my perfect children. And then they're,
I know I've told you this before, but we live in a very, very small town, and it's great running in just North Idaho in general. It's very small. Not a lot of people up here. And it's so interesting to run into people, see the way that they react, or better yet, when we come home sometimes and we see that, hey, somebody sends us a private message like, hey, I saw you out and about at wherever. And it makes me like, have to rethink, like, oh my gosh, was I on my best behavior? Like, I don't want to be making a poor impression upon anybody. But it's an impossible standard to live up to, because we are just normal, everyday people, just like everybody else out there, just like everybody else that's watching right now. So to try and hold yourself to a higher standard for whatever reason is just so unnecessary and unrealistic. But it's kind of weird. It makes me a little paranoid. I'm like, oh man, I literally have to go through my day of like, hey, did I scold the kids for like acting up at the grocery store? Probably. Or did I, was I, when I was running at the beach, like were my pants falling down to where my butt crack was showing?
Probably.
Like, yeah, it's another probably, unfortunately. But you know what I mean? It's just very bizarre. It's so cool and it's so great in so many ways, especially the impact that our audience has had on our channel. But it freaks me out sometimes, if I'm being honest.
Well, yeah. I mean, because you're an online personality, and so you don't want to let down people. But that's hard.
I feel like I let people down all the time. When I meet them in person, I feel like I'll come away from some of the interactions. I'm like, oh, of course I want to make a good impression upon this person. But I just, again, I don't want to repeat myself from the last episode, but I feel like I'm never good enough. Like, oh, maybe I didn't like, maybe I didn't have anything like profound to say or anything cool that I was doing to like make this person entertained. And I think because I spend so much time in that mindset, that it makes me a little uneasy when it comes to like real life interactions, to where somebody knows me from that online side of things.
Wow, you're real heady.
Apparently. Yeah, we're diving. No, you know what I mean. I know I'm not alone on this.
Yeah. Well, I think anyone feels that way. When you meet somebody new, whether you're at a neighborhood barbecue or whatever, and you have a conversation, you might feel really confident and fine in that conversation. It went fine. But then when you leave and you get in the car, you're like, I shouldn't have said that. Like, I wonder if they think I'm real weird now. Or, I think everyone does it. Maybe not. Maybe that's just my
That's especially true for us. Thing. Maybe it's just you and I that are just weirdos, and we live in such an isolated life that this applies only to the Suzas.
It's not a new thing. It's not, since I've been online. I've always been like that. Like, I would meet somebody new and I'd have this great organic conversation, and then I would go, I bet they think I'm weird.
Now who's the one being heady?
Me, for sure. No, I'm real heady.
I really
realize you were.
I don't think that this applies to only us, but it's all amplified when you're online. Before the internet, you had a very small social circle,
right,
compared to what it is that we have now. So to have to take in the impression that you're making upon hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, for some people, millions of random strangers out in the world. Yeah, it's bizarre.
Feedback can be overwhelming.
It can be. And I think it's good in a lot of ways. Like, people will point things out. I feel like it's made me a better person in some ways. It's made me, it's forced me to self-reflect a lot more than I used to. It's forced me to be a lot more considerate of others than I maybe used to be, which sounds a little weird to say, but it's definitely true. So I think it's good when people offer up criticisms of you or something that you're doing, or even when we watch ourselves. Like, I hate hearing my own voice. I hate hearing my own voice. Oh,
it's a good thing we're doing a podcast.
I know. No, but seriously, it's just, those little insecurities bubble to the surface, or like you say something stupid because you do all the time when there's a camera pointed at you. It makes me want to be better and do better and kind of refine the way I come across to people. Does that make sense?
Yes. Okay. I have a different feeling towards it. So my feelings on it are that I just want to get back to being just more raw and me. Like, it's so hard because you put on that you want to give this good impression, and you can very easily end up losing yourself in that.
Oh, absolutely. I think that's one of the big drawbacks that I was
going outside of yourself.
Going outside of yourself. And I know that we've met and spoken to people that do the same thing we do. And it's I want to say that in almost, and I don't mean for this to sound bad or come across a certain way. It's just that the way that everybody comes across and presents themselves online, knowing that people are going to be watching and analyzing, doing all that, it is not who they are in real life. I'm not saying that people are doing it intentionally. I think a lot of times it is completely unintentional.
Like camera personality.
Yeah, you have, it was true when I was a police officer. The same thing was true. People look to me for help in certain situations where I'm like, if I'm being completely honest with you, I don't know exactly what it is I can do to help you. It's not a good feeling to have when someone's literally, you can see it in their eyes. Like, so you're kind of playing a role. And I'm not saying that anyone's being fake. I'm just saying that there are certain aspects of yourself that sort of bubble to the surface when you know that, hey, I'm on camera right now.
Right.
And that's not the case in real life when you're just living your day-to-day life. So it makes for a very complex and complicated situation. It's really interesting.
I mean, maybe we're not as exciting in real life, like maybe we're not as...
We're not that exciting.
Yeah, not really.
No.
I mean, we're just people,
we live fairly boring lives, if you ask me.
Yeah, so, I mean, if you meet me in the grocery store, I'll probably be like, oh, hey, yeah, no, there is a sale on tortilla chips. I got 3 bags. Like, I'm going to be, I'm not going to be like, have some profound thing to say or some funny, cheeky thing to say, probably, unless... I don't know. I'm kind of random. Maybe I will.
Yeah, I think there are examples of people who are so negatively impacted by that it kind of runs amok to an extreme to where people 100% lose themselves in their identities based on the way they come across online and the feedback that they're getting from others. They allow it to reshape their identity, which is definitely not a healthy thing.
No. To have to keep up a persona is really, really difficult. And so I'm glad that we never created these really extreme personalities because
we know people that have.
Yes. And it would be exhausting.
It would be. I feel bad for some of these people because it'd be torturous.
Well, I think eventually you'd say, okay, enough. Like, I just want to be me. I just want to like sound like me, act like me. And then you feel like you can't because you've had this online persona.
You need to uphold the persona that you've created for people. Yeah.
Yeah. And sometimes that's being really, really funny. And it's exhausting to be really funny. And sometimes it's really hard to be funny.
Yeah. So the happy dances, I'm going to use this as an example.
Yeah.
We did a happy dance at the end of a lot of project completion videos early on when we first got here, really with the tiny home primarily, right? And everybody liked it, thought it was really entertaining. But after a while, it was like, okay, how do we make this a thing to where it's still funny and upbeat and positive and like real and authentic? Because we started doing it just organically. Yeah. Naturally. It was like, oh, let's celebrate.
Right. And it was a little like nothing dance, but then we felt like we had to one up it every video.
Yeah.
And then it started to like, there was like choreography, and then it started taking us like an hour to film. And then we had to find different songs, and it became a chore, and it was no longer fun. And then one time we were trying to do the dance and like I wasn't doing it to the rhythm because I have none. And you like said something to me and we got into an argument over the happy dance.
Are you saying it was an unhappy dance?
It was an unhappy dance that ended the happy dance. And I stopped right there and I was like, we're done with this.
No, it wasn't done. Okay, aside from this incident, which I don't recall, by the way. Dance. No, I literally have zero recollection of this. Okay. I will say it just wasn't sustainable. It wasn't sustainable. It was something that came about organically and naturally. We were having fun with it. And then it became an expectation, which made it feel like a burden, which made it feel like, hey, now, regardless of whether or not you actually want to be happy and dancing, you have to do it. So I think, and we will do it again someday. I promise you we will.
Yeah.
One day,
when
randomly,
we feel
we'll bring it back.
Happy dancing.
When you least expect a happy dance, expect a happy dance.
Yeah.
No, but it needs to be, I never like when, at least in our case, I never like when we feel as though we have to go outside of ourselves. So yeah, if we're feeling down, if we're feeling upset, like when Kenji had his surgery and we didn't know whether or not he was going to make it through that procedure.
That was just a difficult week to film, period.
It really was. And so when we're feeling down, I don't want to put pressure on ourselves to have to be like, oh no, let's be upbeat and happy, because it's not real. It's not authentic to ourselves. And I just despise feeling in any way compelled to go outside of ourselves and how it is that we're feeling at any given moment.
Right. Well, I mean, even this week we had kind of a grumpy time.
Totally.
Yeah, it was a tough week, and not because anything, I mean, it wasn't, anything life altering, but there's no way that we would have felt like doing something like happy dance. And if this was some expectation at the end of every video, That I can't even imagine what we would have come up with, a stomp routine.
Yeah. We're bringing in lights and hiring choreographers and doing all that.
It's really dark.
Yeah. No, I just think it's sad because being that we do this now, and I think I recognize it in others.
Yeah.
When during those rare circumstances where I actually like will watch somebody's video, I'm like, okay, I see what's happening here, and I'm like, nah, come on, like, yeah, don't feel like you have to do that.
You don't have to do that.
Yeah, you don't have to. You don't have to do that. Just be yourself and be, just keep it real.
Right. I think that's just really hard to do for anybody because there is so much comparison. So again, when we were kids, when we went to school, there was no Instagram, there was no Twitter, there was no.
I still don't have Instagram.
I
I've
know.
never had Instagram. I refuse.
Good
Sorry,
Living
Instagram.
has an Instagram. None of that existed. So there were magazines, and I remember always being told, "Oh, don't worry about the models in the magazines; those aren't real. They're edited. They're airbrushed."
That was a serious concern back in our day. Like,
was.
literally, I remember that coming up in classes and stuff.
Don't be looking at those catalog girls and thinking that you get to look like that because it's not real. That's
Sets
what they
an
always
unreal
told
expectation.
us.
Yeah.
Yep, and Barbie and all that. That was the Instagram of the 80s was Barbie's perfect physique with her little pointy feet, and yeah,
she's a little hottie.
I always thought Skipper was better. Maybe it's because she was short and brunette.
That's a joke before everybody jumps on me here.
I get it. I get it with Barbie. So now with Instagram, it's the main one. It's photos, right? So I think for all these high school kids, they're scrolling and they're watching all these beautiful people and their perfect, exciting lives and their world travel. And so much of it isn't real. And it's impossible not to compare yourself to that.
So how do you combat that, you think?
I don't know that we do. I think that the genie is out of the bottle as far as social media goes. I think it's only going further. I think AI is going to make it way worse.
Ooh, are we in for some hot AI talk
Oh
right now?
man, I love some AI talk.
How about deep fakes?
I just got fooled by a deep fake.
So the fake Tom Cruise character who is online
Didn't know that was a thing.
duped Melissa.
Yeah, I
The
did.
guy does an impression of Tom Cruise, but he actually uses artificial intelligence to post Tom Cruise's face
Yeah.
over his own. So it's very realistic and it's scary.
Yeah. I was like, Tom Cruise is really out there. You should see this video. Eli shouldn't be watching anything with him. He is rude. And it was a deep fake.
Mm-hmm.
I had no idea.
Makes you sound really old, by the way. Sorry.
I just didn't know about that particular one.
So I guess where I was going with that earlier in saying that, yeah, the internet is a tremendous resource. It's a tremendous blessing in so many ways. It can be like anything else. It can be used for evil. Mm-hmm. It can be used for bad, for the dark arts.
The dark arts.
Right. And it's a very powerful tool either way.
I think we're losing our human connection, and I don't think that there is a return to that, unfortunately. So I would love, that sounds so hopeless. I would love to say that.
So pessimistic.
I know. I mean, maybe we start to crave it again. Maybe like we've heard songs that were, who were the artists that they made the AI songs for?
I'm not even sure. Wasn't it like Jay-Z, some rappers or something? I'm not even sure.
It wasn't Jay-Z. It was like, I don't know. So anyway, they made this song and it skyrocketed on the charts.
Oh, wasn't it a Drake song?
Yeah, it was Drake.
There you go.
And everyone loved it. They were like, this song is incredible. Well, it turned out it was completely AI generated. It wasn't real. It wasn't Drake. They had to take it off and it was so good. And then AI created this action film and it made it in like 2 hours.
Yeah, I did hear about that.
And it was apparently incredible. The storyline was completely unique because right now, Hollywood is just recycling. I mean, how many Disney movies are we going to make real? Just new ideas. We need some new ideas.
Yeah.
Anytime there's a new idea, everyone's like, oh, yay, a unique movie. They're just recycling the same old ideas because nobody can come up with anything new. Well, AI can. And so they came up with this incredible film. They made it in 2 hours with no money. No paid actors, no editing or editors. There was obviously editing, but...
Was there? Because can it just produce the perfect film
maybe
the first time?
Yeah, probably.
Right?
So maybe there was no editing.
Yeah.
Perfect music that didn't exist. That there were no composers to pay.
The entire score, everything. Every aspect of it.
There was no script writers. There were no directors.
That is
It was a free movie, and it was apparently incredible. I didn't see it.
That is terrifying.
Yeah. So if all these great movies are coming out and all this great music is coming out, maybe people start to crave things like live music again. Imperfect human creations.
I think that AI is incredibly intriguing to people in general right now because of its capabilities. But I do think that at some point there will be, a craving to swing the pendulum back the other way, because we as human beings, I don't think AI is fully capable of mimicking what we are capable of as creative beings. I don't. It might be more perfect, but maybe it's too perfect. Maybe it's the flaws.
Imperfect.
Like when you listen to like an acoustic guitar song and you can hear the screeching on the strings, that's part of what makes the song so great.
But what if AI can do that too?
See, you're blowing my mind right now.
I know. And so like, it's so easy to say, oh, well, AI's, because like The Gap and all these other places, I have used these AI models, and they're like these perfect models, and they don't have to pay them.
Mm-hmm.
There's no photo shoot. There's no photographers. There's no editors. There's no makeup artists.
I even know instances of celebrities who are licensing their actual likeness so that AI can take advantage of it and do whatever they want with it. It's just, it's all so, it's moving so rapidly and exponentially. And it terrifies me personally.
So I was looking at these models, and they weren't perfect. They had freckles. They had crooked teeth. They had like shading under their eyes and eye creases. They weren't perfect. And that was kind of scary, because if they look so perfect, you'd be like, this is dumb. That looks fake. But they didn't. They looked flawed.
So do you think that AI is capable of creating something that moves you to emotion, like literally, like a sunset, like a beautiful sunset?
I don't think, I mean, maybe in videos and stuff, I think AI is so much smarter than we are already. And it's only going to perfect itself more and more and more and discover what human beings want, because we're very easy to read. Just look at our online activity. What you look at something, and then those are the ads that are fed to you.
Yeah.
You can figure out what we like, what we don't like. Like you might look at something and click on it and consider buying it, and then be like, no, I better not. Now, if you're in a store, you walk out of that store and you don't make that purchase. If you clicked on that dang thing online, they're going to show it to you over and over. You like this shirt, didn't you? You like this shirt. And the next day, something you like is selling out fast. It does that.
Yeah.
And then finally you're like, I better buy it. Like it knows.
So do you think that the internet as a whole just has too much influence over us as individual people?
I think we allow it to. I think it's very easy to let it take over because it's so fulfilling.
It's falsely fulfilling.
Right.
It's immediate gratification rather than true fulfillment. But it's very, very scary. What was I going to say? I had a thought that came to mind, but I lost it. So where do you think that this leads ultimately? Because it's like
our
you
demise.
said, our demise. Seriously, do you believe that? Oh, I got it. So what I'm saying was, so AI, it's there are negative aspects to that as well, but there are also potential positives to go along with it. It's like anything else. There's you can use it for good or bad.
Right. Medical advances.
Yeah, I just think it's unavoidable. The temptation to use it and the ease at which it is able to complete tasks that would take a human being, however long to complete. It's too useful and valuable of a resource to cast aside.
I think that it's being discovered and created and made stronger prematurely before even the creators of it know what it's capable of.
But it's self-advancing.
It is self-advancing,
in a lot of
and that's
circumstances,
scary.
right?
Like when it started communicating with itself.
The Google AI bot, I remember reading or hearing something about some kind of Google AI program that had literally within a couple of days created its own language and began communicating with some other. I'm not a computer guy.
There was like two of them, and they created a language that humans didn't know, and they were communicating back and forth. And then the people went, "We better shut these down."
Yeah, it's like a sci-fi movie come to life.
Like what happens when it's like, we know how to change our password.
And there's no shutting it down.
We'd never figure it out. We'd never figure out
you're
their
absolutely blowing my mind
crazy password. So it's a little scary. And I think even the creators of it know that it's toothpaste out of the tube. You're never going to put it back. But it's all for power and competition and
the advancement of it, you mean?
yeah,
Yeah.
because it's like, well, if China's doing it or Russia's doing it, then the U.S. better be doing it too. Or if the U.S. is doing it, well, then England better be doing it. Everyone feels like, well, they're doing it and they're doing it and they're doing it and it's coming anyway. So we better be there at the forefront of it. So everyone is running to this and pushing it so rapidly before understanding what it's capable of. And I think that even they are afraid of that. But they want to be first at it and it's coming. So we might as well be a part of it too. I mean, that's what Elon Musk said. It's coming. So I want to have some control over it.
This conversation
I want to be
is
a part of this.
absolutely off the rails. So
I
these are the
know.
types of things that
Man.
we talk about over morning coffee. These
Welcome to
bizarre,
the Sousa household.
these bizarre topics. It's a little glimpse.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think it's real. It is what it is. And being on the internet and starting to see this stuff, starting to see this deep fake stuff, starting to see these films, it's music and everything coming out, I do feel like there is a huge portion of people that there's that whole movement like to put your phone down and reconnect with your family.
Right.
And I think it's more our generation craving what we had. Like we're
we are in the minority
mourning
on that, though. I think the overwhelming majority of people are all in favor of new toys and new tools capable of doing really cool things.
I think people 40, I think it's kind of our age because the internet really exploded like our freshman year of college is when like people started using it for term papers.
MySpace.
Senior year, we still had to go to the library, get encyclopedias, cite our sources, find the information in books, and write reports that way. There was no Googling anything my senior year of high school.
I remember.
That wasn't a thing.
No.
So freshman year, all of a sudden there were online sources. And so we, I think 40 and older, crave what we lost, that human connection. But people younger than that never had it. And so they don't crave the loss of it. And so they welcome these advances. So I think that's where we're going to become the extinct generation of people that knew life before the internet.
I think our outlook on this speaks to our reality of living where we do and doing things the way that we do. Like I will make a conscious effort on nearly a daily basis to do something real in the real world. It's why I love gardening so much because it's real. It's not easy. It's slow. It requires patience. It requires attention. It requires discipline. It's why I enjoy it. Like this morning, I went out and I literally made so we released our first episode and I really didn't want to monitor it for a bit. So I went outside and I watered our orchard. I watered the garden and I paid attention to that and only that. My phone was in my pocket, left it alone, decided I wasn't going to check anything. And I feel like it's a must because it's so easy to get swept up and lost in this virtual world. And I guess for myself, I view it as pulling me away from God. Whole new level of bizarre conversation we had on that. But I want to stay in touch with what's real and with what is truly meaningful to me. I don't want to allow technology to be able to suck that out of me.
Well, if you want to like dive into that, I mean, it's really instant gratification and technology and all of that is really kind of the opposite of the nature of God. Gardening is the nature of God. It's why he put man in the garden, right?
Agreed.
So you have to put in something, seed, if you want to get something out, which is usually abundance, but that takes time. And there's patience and there's failure.
And there are lessons to be learned along the way.
Yeah. This didn't work. We better start again.
Right.
And then you have to wait all over again. It's like that with farming. It's like that with ranching. I mean, you wait all year for calving season. If you have calves die or wolves attack those calves or a cold storm go through. I mean, we lost our baby lamb before it was born this winter. And Mona was pregnant. And then we had this crazy cold snap. And I'm pretty sure, and we're not totally sure when she lost the lamb, but we didn't get a lamb this year. And the only thing we can say is, okay, well, maybe next year. That's so opposite of online instant gratification. If something doesn't work out, it's like, oh, just rebuy that or just re-upload that or just, do it right now. We're going to fix it right now. that's, I think, why we crave this life, because through failure, you have to wait again for success.
So I was just going to say, do you think that that outlook that we both share factored into our ending up here and living the life that we're currently living?
I think so. I think we were starting to crave it before it even got to the point that it is now. I mean,
Right.
there's been this massive explosion pretty much after 2020.
I think we had good timing in that sense when it comes to
Yeah.
all this stuff. Yeah, for sure.
I mean, I think even before the big technology explosion that we're seeing right now, to where things could become almost unrecognizable, people could completely use or lose their human interaction, their ability, or their, not even ability, but their will to communicate.
Their desire.
Their desire is the word I was looking
Right.
for. Thank you. Yeah. Their desire to have human interaction. And we're losing that.
Yeah, we are all willfully choosing to partake in this virtual world full of virtual interactions, whether it be a family member, whether it be an old friend from high school. We were talking about that. Did we bring that up?
Yeah.
So things like high school reunions and all that used to be a pretty, I mean, generally speaking, people were excited to attend their 20-year high school reunion. We have been out of high school for over 20 years now, coming up on 25 years, which is crazy. And I have a pretty firm grasp of what's happening in everybody's life when it comes to the people that I was really close to way back in 1998.
There wasn't even a 20-year reunion at my high
No,
school.
and I don't think anyone attends them anymore because
not like they used to. It used to be you got dressed up and you brought your husband, and you got to see who had a receding hairline and
right.
who got fat and who was divorced. And, like you wanted to see what happened to people.
Yeah, and now we all know it because everybody's on Facebook and
Right.
the Instaface and the Snap, TikTok.
The Twitter Snap, and
I do Facebook and Facebook only because again,
because you're an old lady.
I don't, it gets to be too much. It's the only reason, it's the reason I'm only on Facebook is because especially with what we do, YouTube and Facebook require so much of our time and attention, and it comes up so readily in our conversations that I get kind of tired of it and burnt out on it.
I don't even do Facebook anymore, and I haven't for a couple of years.
Your personal Facebook, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
I just kind of abandoned it, and nobody noticed.
I think it's because again, it's a bizarre circumstance for us in particular because we are living out our life online.
Yeah. My friends from high school, people that I knew from high school, I don't even think they noticed that I stopped posting on Facebook.
Yeah.
We just
Fizzled.
lost contact. Once Facebook and MySpace MySpace became a thing, then Facebook, we stopped talking.
Mm-hmm.
And then I saw who they married. I saw that they had kids. I saw what they did for a living, and I never called them again. And I just think that's sad, because I was like, I don't need to wonder what's going on with this person because I can just see it. And then all of a sudden I didn't know them anymore. Not to where I could pick up the phone.
It's not the same.
Right.
It's nowhere near the same as it's part of the appeal in doing this podcast, right? Is that you and I kind of get to check out, leave everything, set everything aside, come in here. It's nice and quiet, even though my watch is beeping at me.
Turn
currently.
off that little weird watch computer.
Sorry. So what I was saying, it's not the same. That you cannot replace the face-to-face human interaction to read somebody's body language, to see the way that their face lights up when you provide them with good news, to see the sorrow in their face when, they're going through something tough. It's not the same. There's no replacing that.
Yeah. Well, I know. I see like when somebody loses somebody on Facebook, people are like, oh, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm guilty of it myself. I have sent those messages. When you should pick up the phone and call them or send them a meal and a card
seek them out.
or go see them.
And provide them with a hug.
Right. And now it's just like, oh yeah, no, I told them sorry on Facebook. Like how empty are those messages? Happy birthdays. Same thing. It's like, oh yeah, no, I wish him a happy birthday online.
And the sad part is kind of like you referenced earlier is I don't think there's any going back to that world. I think that world is a thing of the past.
Yeah.
Which freaks me out for our kids. Do you ever grow concerned with the fact that our kids seem to be so accustomed to having cameras around or cameras pointed at them or random people being like, oh, hey. Right. I always look at their faces when a random person will come to one of our kids and be like, oh, hey, Nevaeh. It's not a normal thing.
Right.
It's a cool thing. It's always a great interaction. It's so cool to meet people in public and have them light up and be like, oh, hey, I know you from the YouTube.
Yeah.
And it's always so cool. I love it every single time, because it is an abnormal thing. You don't run into like random strangers and have them be excited to see you.
Right.
It's a great thing. It really is. It fills you up. It makes you feel good about what it is that you're doing. But I think for the kids, it's maybe a little different because they don't have a firm grasp of. I mean, I guess they do, but it's such an abnormal thing. Do you know what I mean?
It is abnormal. I think it's more abnormal for us. Especially Eli and Kira have really grown up with this that it almost isn't abnormal to them. And I think that's what disturbs you more than anything is they are so comfortable with it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think you're like, why are they so comfortable with this?
Not to the level of like causing me concern. It's just an interesting thing to make note of and kind of see how they treat those situations because I think like you said, especially the two youngest, it's just become so normal for them and it's far from a normal thing. You're not supposed to have random people know your first name as a child.
Yeah. Well,
that was cause for concern a couple decades ago. Now it's
I remember like, don't put your kid's name on their backpack.
Right.
Because somebody can call them by their name. Well, and we have had these conversations with our kids. If somebody knows your name, it's because you're on the internet, not because they know you and they don't have puppies or candy. Don't go with them.
We have a lot of those discussions given my background for sure.
Yeah, for sure. I think our kids are paranoid to an extreme, if anything. They're definitely not going to go trust somebody. So, but I mean, just to kind of get back to it. So I think with this wave of change, with the way that we're just interacting as people or not interacting as people, there's been a definite increase in aggressiveness towards our fellow man, or you know what I mean, or woman. People are so much more aggressive. Think about in a car. When you are driving in a car, you will lay on, not you, but I'm just saying people will lay on their horn to somebody directly in front of them or shout something because there's this layer between them. It's just a car window, but you are far more likely to scream at someone, flip them the bird, lay on your horn when you're in your car. Mm-hmm. Now, you wouldn't do that if you were both standing in the park and they did something like, let's say they were just being slow in front of you. You're walking in front and you're waiting to throw your cup away in the garbage and they stop right in front of you. You would just stand there and wait, right? Or maybe walk around them, but you wouldn't say anything. But in your car, you lay on the, like, God forbid that light turn green and they are changing their radio. Like you're going to be like, beep, 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 beep. You know what I mean? Because you are in the comfort of your car. Don't do that. Oh my gosh, you don't even know how to make it work. Oh my gosh. This is so bad.
That was embarrassing. Well, we actually have sound effects on our little soundboard here.
You were so excited.
That was a perfect opportunity
sound effect
for the air horn, and it's come and gone.
Anyway,
I get what you're saying though. Yeah. Okay. So environmental factors, right?
Right.
The more space you feel you have between yourself and another person, it seems to influence the way that people handle certain situations.
And I think the internet has made this so much worse.
So much worse.
Because now you're in your home, you're in your jammies, you got your sassy pants on.
Yeah, you feel safe to say whatever you want.
And people do.
They do.
And you would never, ever say that stuff.
Take it a step further. There are people who will use the internet to paint a narrative. Mm-hmm. and tell lies because it serves themselves in a certain way, which has been very interesting. We've been caught up in situations like that as well. So yeah, I think there, again, to go back to good and bad, right? So the internet's great for a number of things, but if anyone wants to use it for evil shenanigans, they can very easily do so.
Little leprechaun shenanigans.
Yeah, and it's frustrating and upsetting for the same reasons you were just pointing out, is because I think if we were face to face, you wouldn't dare say, especially when it came to, I'm not somebody who tolerates being spoken to or being treated a certain way very well. And that's not to say I'm like a firecracker by any means, but especially when it comes to like our family,
right?
There are examples of things that have happened in the past where, I'm not gonna stand for it. So it makes for a weird little dichotomy when it comes to the internet and people saying what they feel is justified versus what is real and true.
Well, and I think young people have fallen into that trap way more than adults. So teenagers and kids have become pretty brutal towards one another. Mm-hmm. I mean, to the point that you've got middle schoolers
Committing
committing suicide
Yeah, it's horrible.
from online bullying.
Horrible.
That was really rare when we were kids because, yes, there was bullying, but it was usually in a crowd and somebody would usually say something or their friends were present. They had a support system there.
Yeah.
Or even if they didn't, it didn't rise to the level that it rises to now because it was still in person. Somebody would step in, a teacher or something, you know, like you couldn't stand in a cafeteria and belittle someone to the degree that it is done online.
It's really bad with kids because they don't have the ability to make sense of it and
Right.
know why somebody is saying what they're saying. For you and I, in situations and circumstances that have kind of fallen into our lap, we know what it is. We can, we know why people are saying the things that maybe they're saying and directing toward us. And we know that it's that person and issues that lie internally with that person or those people that are causing this to come about. And that's really all it is.
Yeah, self-serving agendas.
Absolutely.
And it's like that with kids too. I mean, they have self-serving agendas. They want to be the highest in the pecking order. And so they'll take somebody that, you know, a pretty girl or a new girl or someone that they perceive as weak. And I mean, they are creating pages, burn pages or whatever you want to call them. It's kind of like that movie Mean Girls where they had the burn book, only these are online pages.
We just watched that.
For kids that have to attend school, you get this interaction, you get this gang mentality that is so brutal online because they're completely protected behind these fake identities or, you know, I mean, especially if they're using fake identities, they just say whatever they want.
Don't even get me started.
Yeah. And then adults do it too.
A lot of adults do it as well.
Yeah. They've got lots of pages.
Even people who probably shouldn't.
Yeah. So
People who probably don't realize that I have a very specific set of skills, being that I was a professional investigator for over a decade.
we can figure out exactly who you
And
are.
I can figure things out very, very easily.
It gets pretty goofy when there's 10 people behind or one person behind a bunch of profiles. So, but you know, kids do it too. And there's no way there's one mean girl can create 20 profiles and make it look like everybody hates you and drive these kids literally to suicide. And it's so sad. And it never existed before. We live in a funny time where people are willing to hurt people because they're not face to face with them. When you're looking at someone and you say something mean or you say something that makes them uncomfortable and you physically see them shift and you watch that look on their face change, a lot of people back down. They're like, I made that person feel bad.
Right. It brings it back to all of us being humans once again.
Right.
With, you know, real life emotions.
Yeah. And I think that it's something that people younger are missing out on. They missed that part of adolescence that we and every generation before us got to experience. If you offended someone, you risk being punched in the face.
I was going to say, there's a much bigger discussion to be had on this because of the things that are instilled within kids nowadays.
Right.
And again, to go back when I was working in the high school, you know, there are times where some of the guidance being given or some of the policies that are created by the school district just don't jive with what it is that I think should be instilled within kids. I've never encouraged any kind of violence, anything like that. I don't think anybody should go out of the way to try to hurt anybody else. But there are times where defending yourself is warranted at times. And to say that we have a zero tolerance policy when it comes to, hey, you threw a punch in this circumstance, even though you were being pummeled by two other kids, so you're in trouble as well. No.
Yeah.
Sorry, I don't subscribe to that way of thinking.
Right.
Not at all.
Yeah, I think we've asked kids or people to become very soft, even though the culture has become more aggressive.
Right. How about stand up for yourself when it's warranted? Don't go out of your way to make a point with somebody. But, you know, hey, if someone's badgering you, if you're feeling as though you are being threatened physically, verbally, what have you, you shouldn't cower and be reluctant to fire back is all I'm saying.
Right.
I just heard a camera ring. Did you? Let me check these real quick. We're going to take a pause. Okay, so sorry about that. We actually had a technical issue with one of our cameras. It is so hot in here that one of the cameras actually overheated, so we had to take a quick pause. My apologies. This is supposed to be GSL uncut, not awkward cuts.
Yeah.
50 minutes in.
Sweat towel. Yeah, it's pretty hot in here, and yeah, our camera overheated.
Anyway, where were we?
Okay, so I mean, to redirect this in maybe a more hopeful, positive way.
Has this been very negative?
I mean, no, I think that it just kind of is what it is. It's just things that we have been observing. But I think that there's also this huge call and pull back to what's real. I think there's been a big pull back to home uh, for women, for men, for children. People want to reconnect with their families, reconnect with their friends. There's this whole put your phone down movement among young people, which I love to see.
Yeah, Kaimani brought that up with me. It's something he might want to try doing at some point.
He doesn't have a phone.
Yeah, but we still have he's got a tablet that
Yeah.
he tinkers on, and then we have the TV and all that. So yeah, our kids are pretty limited when it comes to all of the technological distractions that are available to
But they
a
still
lot
feel
of kids.
it.
But yeah, they still feel it. Especially, again, I think that comes back to what we do in part, which is why we try to make a conscious effort to, do things without the cameras. Right. I think it's important, and I don't like relying upon our videos to serve as memories, if that
Right.
makes sense. I like to be able to refer back mentally to a moment in time and, remember going hiking and just doing something together as a family rather than having to rely upon our videos to replace those memories.
Right. And I think that can definitely happen. I think photos and videos can replace memories just as places in your brain. Like I've actually had the kids, Eli was saying, oh, I remember this. And he brought something up and we have a photo of it.
Mm-hmm.
And he was like 2. And I'm like, you do
don't
not remember that.
You think you remember.
You remember the photo.
Well, I don't know. Maybe he does. Who knows? He's
so.
so young that, I'm doubtful that he remembers it. But
Right.
yeah, it's a very interesting concept to think that we have become so reliant upon visual cues
Mm-hmm.
to serve as a reminder of a moment in time rather than
Actual
reflecting
moments in
and remembering from our own first person perspective a moment in time.
And it's so funny because those memories that you have that had nothing to do with film are so pivotal and they're so important.
Mm-hmm.
They're so precious. I think about just little memories of that I have as a child. Like I was telling the kids, my dad used to pick us up on Fridays for half days at school and he would have the announcement lady at the office who he kind of won over. He had her say, Alicia and Melissa Monroe, please report to the office. Your dad wants to take you to Applebee's. And
so your dad.
It's so my dad.
Him.
And he wanted us to feel special. He wanted the other kids to be like, oh, they're going to go to Applebee's.
That's cool. That's a really cool memory. What is your first memory?
Oh, geez.
And how old were you?
I think my first memory was when I was 4. I had a lot of surgeries. I was born, this is something a lot of people don't know.
Let's save this. You can allude to it, but let's save this. This is a longer conversation.
Born extremely hearing impaired.
Explain.
No, you just told me to save it.
Well, what specifically does that mean, hearing impaired, when it comes to you and your situation?
I was pretty deaf. My eardrums were underdeveloped. And so they started to realize it when I wasn't speaking properly. My family still calls me Meha. That comes from Mahiha, which is what I used to say my name was because I did a lot of lip reading and Melissa somehow looked like Mahiha, which is like a donkey noise. So when people would ask me what my name was, and then my dad changed it to Meha and then it became Missa and a bunch of other things to my cousins. And
we're really heavy on the nicknames in our family. Have you noticed that?
Yeah, we do have a lot of nicknames.
Anyway, sorry.
So when I was 4, I started having ear surgeries and things like that. And a very early memory was my mom waking me up and then going to get that surgery. And I didn't feel good because it was early in the morning. I mean, it had to have been like 4 o'clock. And I had to put on this hospital gown and they gave me hospital underwear. And I didn't want to wear them because I was a little girl, I was a little 4-year-old. I was like, those aren't my underwears. Yeah. Like, I'm not wearing those. And it was like this huge, it was like a tragedy that I had to wear this hospital underwear. It was too big. It wasn't my Little Pony. Like it's just a really early core memory. And it's kind of the earliest one I can remember. How about you?
My first memory is being in the shallow water at Ala Moana Beach in Honolulu when I think I was 3 years old. Oh. And I was looking up onto the beach in the sand with my mom and dad sitting next to each other. My dad's seated on the right. My mom is seated on the left on a towel. My dad was wearing black glasses and a blue and white hat with a ulua fish on it. Very, very vivid memory. And then I remember turning away from them and looking up at the sky and seeing a commercial airliner flying overhead because all the planes that take off from Honolulu on the reef runway fly right over Ala Moana. So a very, very vivid memory. It's a very interesting thing to think about. Spent a lot of time there as a kid.
It's like the start of a movie. You
it see was. The kid it plays out that way in my mind.
Wow.
Yeah, it's really weird. But yeah, that's it.
Hmm.
Memories.
That's crazy. So these early memories, I mean, I even remember dances and stuff.
Do you remember them as like movie scenes, or do you remember them more so as like snapshots?
I remember moments of them. They weren't snapshots, but they're short moments. Like I remember driving to homecoming senior year with Brian Dunnigan because I was so excited to be going with him. And I remember like looking over at him in the car, like, I can't believe like I'm going to homecoming with Brian Dunnigan. And like little things like that, like they're little memories in time, I remember cheering senior year like I usually remember a lot of senior year, but I just have little
Snippets.
5-minute snippets or 2-minute snippets. I remember standing there at the last cheerleading game and then my one friend saying, "Never forget how this feels." That was her big thing. She always said. And I remember being like,
which friend was that?
Krista. And yeah, I just remember like taking that in and like looking across this Friday Night Lights field and being like, this is cool and this is ending. And snapshotting
This
that.
is a moment.
Yeah.
Mark it down.
And it still is to me 21 years later.
Yeah. It just recently came up in one of your ending narratives.
Well, she said it to me at our wedding too.
Yeah. Yeah. How much do you remember from our wedding? First of all,
I remember quite a bit from our wedding.
do you?
Yeah. Because
we'll talk about this
I
more
think
in
because you
another
reminded
episode
me
too,
to
but-
remember.
The same friend, Krista.
Yeah,
Same friend.
I think
yeah.
she
And she actually became a wedding planner, right?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
She's good at that.
We should talk on another episode about that. We're almost at an hour.
Okay.
We're at 58 minutes according to this clock here.
Yeah. So, I mean, this conversation got a little weird. It got a little off the rails.
Got extremely weird. Let's revisit we'll make note for future reference. We'll talk about our wedding.
Right.
Just because it's a quirky story. We actually got married in Las Vegas.
Oh, our wedding was...
It was interesting.
I mean, I feel like I can't share all of it.
What? Oh.
I know.
Like the events leading up to it?
No.
What? What are you talking about?
I mean, I don't know. Like some of the frustrations of the day and stuff, and
Like what?
and people that were involved, I would never want to offend. You know?
Okay.
Yeah.
Anyway, so we'll bring that up on a future episode maybe. But yeah,
Yeah.
so episode 2, was this a little smoother? Is it despite the fact that we had a camera go down mid-recording?
I mean, no, I don't think that was smoother, but I think we're gonna get there. I mean, we shouldn't be having overheating equipment.
Yeah,
here.
apologies once again for that. These things happen. Again, we're learning as we go here with being only on episode number 2. But I'm still loving this format. I really enjoy it. I like that we can set aside some time to speak in this nice quiet room. It's so great, even though it's like 100 degrees in here today. I feel like we're talking in a sauna.
Yeah, sauna.
In a sauna.
I think like now that we've been talking about the differences of the generations and the way that we see the world and we see other people, I think it would be really interesting to get Nevaeh on here.
I think that's what we're going to do for episode number 3.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it would be really cool to have her on here. I want to hear from her because she has very, very strong opinions.
She does. And I will caution her against saying too much. But at the same time...
let her go. Let her go.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, I don't want to... That sounds really weird. Don't... what I mean is she just has to be very... Yeah, just be smart about what it is that you say.
Yeah, Nevaeh has very strong opinions. She has a very huge personality. And, I mean, that makes her difficult to parent in many ways. Because, I mean, she knows what she thinks she knows.
Yeah.
And she always has.
Strong-willed.
Very. It could serve her very well in life if she learns how to really use that. She's a very strong person. And I just think that she has definitely her own opinions about this.
Mm-hmm.
And so it would be really interesting to hear just her
perspective.
Her perspective on it, yeah.
Sounds good. All right. We are now at an hour, give or take. So episode number 3, we'll have Nevaeh on here. We'll get a younger person on. We'll get her opinion, thoughts on things, and go from there.
All right.
Okay. One more cheers. Let's do this.
Water.
Water versus wine. Boom. This is fun.
It was.
All right. We'll see you guys on episode number 3 next Wednesday. Thanks so much once again for being here. And again, appreciate all the comments and all the kind words that you guys sent our way here today with episode number 1 actually being released. So we greatly, greatly appreciate it. And we will see you over on episode number 3. Right? Cool. Bye, guys.